We have not had a news week like this when it comes to sports, when it comes to head coaching, but again, just sports in a long time. We haven't had this, but it's a sign. Your childhood is over. It's been over, but now it's really over. Welcome to Break Panel Sports. I'm John, not joined alongside Joel. We got a lot to talk about. We've had some of the biggest news in coaching this past week going on right now. Really, I just heard about a big move out of Alabama and not the retirement of Nick Saban. We've got a lot to talk about, a lot to break down. We got Bill Belichick, Nick Saban. I'll talk a little bit about Pete Carroll, Kalen DeBoer heading over to Alabama and the Crimson Tide. It's a huge, huge day to be a fan of college football, a huge day to be a fan of any sport. Also, Gerard Mayo going over to New England. They found that option pretty quick. So let's break it down. Again, this is Break Panel Sports, and I'm John, joined alongside nobody here for this adventure as we break down this situation here in the coaching world. We're going to start off with Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots and Gerard Mayo being hired to be the next head coach over there in New England. It's a big move, huge move coming out of the northeast part of the United States of America. So let's talk about that, right? Gerard Mayo, great linebacker, phenomenal player for the New England Patriots. I'm going to break that down first. I like the hire, to be honest. Super Bowl champion. He had a pretty good term while he was there over as a coach of the inside linebackers coach for the New England Patriots. He was a guy that when Bill Belichick was kind of going through his rough patches, when the Patriots were looking down, when things weren't going that well, it was always, oh, maybe Gerard Mayo could one day come through and take over that position. And now here he is. He's going to be the next head coach of the New England Patriots. He's never been a head coach before, so that's an interesting situation. And I think it's good for New England because it's clear and obvious that there was no quick hire to make. There was no move that made New England a champion tomorrow. This is now a rebuild. I think now they have dedicated to a full-fledged rebuild over there in New England. That's the situation that we're seeing. So, Patriot fans, as you get used to life without Bill Belichick, and that life was, oh, maybe they'll have a chance every single year, except for really the past two or three. They didn't have much of a chance this year at all. So now, again, rebuild, no quarterback, growing defense. There's some good players on there. Trent Brown, who knows where he's going to go. Matthew Judon is still sticking around, but those players obviously are now, you have to build around them. This isn't a Super Bowl team. I think everyone knows that. But Mayo, he's done some great things. He has the experience. He knows how to coach a defense. He has done a great job. I think a lot of people would have liked to see him maybe head coach somewhere else first, or even just be a defensive coordinator first, or a special teams coordinator or something. He'd be a defensive coordinator. But for him to transition right into head coaching, that is interesting. A lot of people obviously wanted Mike Vrabel, former coach of the Tennessee Titans. Now, where does he end up? Is he going to Atlanta, or is Bill Belichick going to Atlanta? Who's going to Los Angeles? We're going to find out more as everything develops, as everything goes along. And who knows, maybe by the time that you're listening to this, everything else that I'm talking about is a bit outdated, but this is what we have here on this Friday afternoon. We have Gerard Mayo as the next head coach, obviously, of the New England Patriots. So, again, I think it's very interesting. I like the hire. It's exactly what the Patriots needed. Yes, Mike Vrabel is such a great option, and I do find it strange that you weren't going to go the Vrabel route. Maybe he's not interested. Maybe he doesn't want the job. He's probably going to Los Angeles or Seattle potentially, but it's a hire that is good. It's a hire that if it doesn't go well, you tried it. You tried to go the young head coaching route. And that's the thing about head coaching nowadays. You're kind of supposed to take risks. There's no guaranteed way to the top. Even whoever hires Bill Belichick, you're not guaranteeing that a championship will come out of that. It's not like Tom Brady. Coaches don't play, coaches coach. You still have to build a roster, right? So when Tom Brady goes to Tampa, oh, you upgrade at a position that this team was a quarterback away from potentially winning a Super Bowl, a Tom Brady away from winning a Super Bowl. That's what they were at the time when they were going through the Jameis Winston era. And then they got it, they won a Super Bowl. But Bill Belichick going wherever doesn't fix the roster issue. But a great young head coach can fix a roster issue over time, not next year. So that's why it's going to be hard, I think, for Bill Belichick to really find his way, that you're not going to hire Bill Belichick somewhere else. So again, Gerard Mayo, there's not too much to say about it except it's good. I think it's good. I don't think anybody's going to disagree with that, unless if you think that they should have had a coach with head coaching experience. But again, young head coach, young team, young roster. At least that's the plan going forward. Now they got to hire a general manager. That's what I care more about if you're a New England Patriots fan. Someone's got to manage this team. Someone's got to figure that out. The field stuff is going to be the field stuff. Now you got to draft a quarterback. Now you got to do all this stuff. So Jerod Mayo's over here, right? And the retirement of Bill Belichick. We can talk about that forever. And you've heard enough about his greatness, about what he's done, about is he the greatest head coach of all time? Are you going to criticize him for the past few years? Is that a worry that you have about when you compare him to Vince Lombardi, when you compare him to all the other great coaches that have gone through the ranks, that have gone through the NFL? When you talk about Bill Walsh, when you talk about everybody, Bill Belichick is the guy. Every time a next great head coach comes out, you're going to talk about Bill Belichick because of what he did with Tom Brady, because of what he did with this defense of the New England Patriots, what he did to guys like Jerod Mayo, who are now taking over the reins. And because Jerod Mayo was with Bill Belichick for so long, that's why he was ready to be a head coach in the NFL, at least according to Robert Kraft and the New England Patriots. So we'll see where that goes. But when it comes to Bill Belichick, right? It was supposed to happen. This was a long time coming. It's not like the other two moves in head coaching that, wow, that just happened. Whoa. We saw this coming from when the Patriots were bad. We saw this last year. We saw this maybe happening last year. Now Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick have come to a conclusion. This isn't working out. Our time is done. It's time to get out of here. It's time to figure out something new. And those two guys are going to figure out something new. But I think what I really want to talk about when it comes to Belichick is what's next for Bill Belichick, because it's very clear that he's going to be a head coach somewhere else. He's going to be in the NFL. He's not retiring. He's going somewhere else. We've all established that. So you talk about a place like Los Angeles, established quarterback, decent roster. They just got to add a few more pieces. The main thing they had to fix was the defense. And Bill Belichick is obviously one of the greatest defensive minds to ever coach on an NFL field in the history of this game. That is an undeniable truth, right? So I think that's his best fit. You can also look at a place like Seattle in kind of a similar situation. They have a quarterback. He's not necessarily a Hall of Famer or a superstar in Geno Smith, but they've got some key defensive players. They've got a really good thing going on there. He can elevate that defense and all of that. And the offense, you'll have to hire a good offensive coordinator to handle all of that. No matter where he goes, you're going to have to hire a good offensive coordinator. But when it comes to head coaching, Bill Belichick has shown he can win. But can he win with, I mean, here's the thing. I was going to say, can he win with subpar to mediocre quarterback play? But what head coach wins? I'm talking Super Bowls. I'm not talking Kevin Stefanski. I'm talking what head coach wins Super Bowls with subpar quarterback play on a consistent basis. Not a lot of head coaches win on a consistent basis, period. Even if you have great quarterbacks, even if you have all this around you. And to expect Bill Belichick to have stabilized these Patriots, to expect Bill Belichick to have kept this roster intact after building a dynasty, there's always a down period after a dynasty. It's just the way of life. It's just the way it's happening. You're going to see it in Golden State. The Warriors are going to stink for a long time, but I think any sports fan would trade in a dynasty for having a few bad years, for having 5 to 6 bad years in a row. I think any sports fan would figure that out, would accept that and say, you know what, I'm okay with that. One franchise that never really had to do that is the Packers because they keep finding quarterbacks. But that's the thing about Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots. I don't take these past 4 years or whatever, 3 years, and say, oh, maybe he's not as great as we thought he would. No, the guy won 6 Super Bowls. Yes, he had Tom Brady. Okay. Am I going to give him flack for that? Yeah, he wouldn't have won as many Super Bowls without Tom Brady. Yeah, Joe Montana wouldn't have had as many passing yards without Jerry Rice. But Tom Brady also wouldn't have as many Super Bowls without Bill Belichick. And Jerry Rice wouldn't have had as many touchdowns without Joe Montana. It's just the way of the world. It's just the situations we had. Based on what we saw, based on what everything was, I'm not playing any hypotheticals. Those guys are the greatest when it comes to everything, right? When it comes to combinations. And Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, great combination. Let's appreciate them. Let's do what we did for them. Let's give them their flowers like we have all year. All this past week, all it's been on ESPN everywhere is Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. How great that was. How great this dynasty was for the Patriots. Yeah, it was great for you to cover it, I'm sure. It was a torture field for a lot of us sports fans, but it was fun. It was fun for a lot of us. So that's my thing with Bill Belichick. I think that he's going to go somewhere, and I'm not going to sit here and say he's going to pull a Tom Brady and go win another Super Bowl before he finally calls it quits. Now he's 72 years old. Can we acknowledge that? He's 72. So any team that goes out and gets Bill Belichick, you're not getting a 10 to 20 year head coach. You're getting Bill Belichick for probably at the most 5 years, right? 77. Do you want an 80-year-old head coach? I know we live on a different planet now. I know it's very different in modern medicine. And this guy, and if he really wanted to, Bill Belichick can probably coach for the rest of his life. But at the end of the day, the NFL is the NFL. The times are the times. It was time for Belichick to go. And I personally, when we've talked about this. I talked about this on the show a few times, or at least once, where I said Bill Belichick, it was time to go. Joel agreed with me. It was time for him to go out of New England. They left. In my head, that meant he's retiring. I was not expecting him to be back with New England or with anybody at all. I was thinking he's going to go right out into the sunset and just live the rest of his life, right? You're a little bit short of Don Shula, but nobody's really saying, oh, he's got to pass Don Shula to become the greatest head coach of all time. Nobody's saying that except for probably old Dolphins fans. So I understand. But obviously, you've coached this long, you've won as much as you have, and the one thing that's left for you to accomplish is the Don Shula coaching record. So he'll have to coach at least 2 more years probably to get that done, 2 or 3, depending on how good or bad the team is. And LA probably gives him the best chance to do that. So that's where I'm going to sit here and say he'll probably go to LA. It'll be a nice, fun era for him. I don't think he's going to win all that much, but the Chargers will make the playoffs at least once or twice. If you give Bill Belichick over there, I mean, anything is better than Brandon Staley. They can hire anybody, and Charger fans will be throwing a party, jumping up and down for joy that the Bill Belichick era would begin. So I think at any point, Charger fans will take Bill Belichick. Charger fans will take, again, any head coach on the market. But I think Belichick will find a job pretty quickly. He'll probably be the first domino to fall. To me, unless if obviously you have Patriot situations where you're just going to bring a guy up, it feels like a Shohei Ohtani situation. Not the money, not the greatness, anything, but it feels like you need that domino to fall before the rest can. Because I think a lot of situations they're going to say, "Oh, if we can get Bill Belichick, we'll take Bill Belichick," and that includes playoff teams. Playoff teams that'll fire the head coach after this season. So I think that'll probably happen. It'll be the first real domino to fall. Bill Belichick, he'll get hired, and then the teams that say no. I think if you see any team hire a head coach before Bill Belichick gets hired by somebody else, Bill Belichick probably said no to them. Bill Belichick probably wasn't interested in them. I don't think he's interested in the Carolina Panthers job, reclamation projects. He wants to win. He's one of the greatest head coaches ever. He wants to win. That's his situation. Okay? That is Bill Belichick. So he's going to pick one of those teams. He has the pick of the litter. He has any opportunity. He's like what Alabama just had. Pick of the litter. You can go anywhere you want when it comes to head coaching, except for the teams that probably wouldn't fit with you anyway. So that's what I think is going to happen. You'll see that domino fall, and then the Vrabels will get hired, and then all of that will occur. Okay? That's what's going to happen. Just to comment quick about Pete Carroll and his quote-unquote firing. It seemed like Pete Carroll wanted to remain the head coach of the Seattle Seahawks, and the Seahawks said no. They'll move him into a different advisory role. So he's moving on, I guess, up in the organization, if you want to call it that. I don't think he's getting a pay grade or a pay raise. It's probably going down a little bit. Obviously, Pete Carroll, one of the most historic, iconic coaches in the history of the National Football League and college football as well with the USC. So no one's going to deny his greatness. And I don't have too much on this one because it's really hard to tell what's going to happen next. That's why it's so hard to talk about. You don't really know because, again, his time is done. He's one of the greatest coaches. He is also 72 years old, but he looks much more spry and ready to go than a Bill Belichick, and Bill Belichick's still coaching. So right now he's kind of an advisor and executive president with the Seattle Seahawks. Will he stay in that role? Maybe for a year and then coach after that. But for a coach like Pete Carroll, the clock is ticking like Bill Belichick in terms of if you want to be a head coach again. So right now he's in that role with the Seahawks. That's where he currently is. I don't know if a team calls Pete Carroll, if a team calls the Seahawks, say, hey, we want Pete Carroll. We want to have him be the head coach of our team. Does this maybe allow a trade to happen? I don't know. But right now the Seahawks have him. And I don't think he's going to head coach again. I personally think he's done in terms of head coaching in the National Football League because he'll probably just remain with the Seahawks. He loves the Seahawks. He loves this organization and this franchise. I don't see him wanting to leave especially at his current age and everything. And he's been with Seattle for so long. I mean, let's see the years. He's been with the Seahawks since 2010. I mean, think of how long ago that was. Where were you in 2010? How old were you in 2010? Right? A lot of us listening to this show probably weren't even 10 at that point when it came to when Pete Carroll was hired by the Seattle Seahawks, or we were just becoming double digits. We didn't even know, we barely knew what a head coach was in the National Football League and what that meant. So that's where I see that going. I see him being done in the National Football League. He is probably going to stay in that role for as long as he wants. It allows him to stay with the Seahawks. It allows him to keep doing what he's going to do. And who knows, right? Let's say they hire a coach and he stinks, straight up stinks, isn't good, and they fire him. Who's going to be on that list? If Pete Carroll's still good to go at 74, why not? Why not? Or if something happens where they need a coordinator or whatever, they can just move Pete Carroll back down to head coaching or to coordinating or to whatever, right? He will still be involved with the organization. Those players are still going to see him probably every day. And that is if he remains with the Seahawks, right? He's vice president of football operations and an advisor. There's a reason he's the vice president, though, not the president, because that leaves it open for him to coach somewhere else if he wants to. Who knows if the Chargers job opens up, what will he want to do? Or well, what now that the Chargers job is opened up, what is he going to want to do? Maybe he'll be interested. I don't know. I can't sit here and tell you he wouldn't be, right? One of these playoff teams, the Cowboys fire Mike McCarthy, which I don't think they will, because it's a pretty good year. But if they lose to the Packers and whatever, the Cowboys will have a short list. It's Pete Carroll and Bill Belichick. That'll be the list of potential Cowboy head coaches if that move is made. I don't think the Packers fire Matt LaFleur. That's probably not going to happen. Baltimore, San Francisco, those jobs are safe. Maybe Buffalo, right? Maybe in Buffalo, Sean McDermott, they end up getting rid of him if they have a first round exit, if things go wrong against Pittsburgh, right? So who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? I can't sit here and tell you. But for now, it looks like Pete Carroll is probably gone when it comes to the head coaching ranks in the National Football League. That is done. Those days are over. Okay. Pete Carroll, great time. I think a lot of us are kind of getting lost with this stuff, right? Because we're sitting here saying Bill Belichick is still, I don't think a lot of people are saying this, but that Bill Belichick would still, could win a Super Bowl with the Chargers would be a guarantee. That Pete Carroll's still going to be a coach. Yes, you watch these guys and they're still obviously right. If you sat here and if people sat here and told you that Bill Belichick and Pete Carroll were 65 years old, you'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. These guys are 72 years old. Okay. At some point, you have to take a step back, enter a much less intensive role with the organization, or just retire completely and go be grandpa. Right. I'm not saying grandpa is an insult. I'm saying genuinely, you want to spend time with your grandchildren and your children and all the people that the work of head coaching prevented you from being able to go out and be with, right? You had to go be with your grandchildren. You had to go with your children. And a lot of the time you couldn't because you're head coaching. You're traveling to San Francisco one day and you're traveling to Buffalo the next week. You're not spending time on your grandkids' sixth birthday. That's just the way it is. So these guys want to be able to do that. If Pete Carroll, right, he's not traveling with the team every week. He's just a vice president and an advisor. So when the president of football operations says, "Hey, we want to make this move," hey, Pete, how would this player react? How does this player play? What kind of scheme fit do we got here? That's Pete. That's what he's going to be doing. So I wouldn't be surprised if he just stays in that role and is able to, do that from his home in Seattle or wherever he decides to live. Because you can do this as a remote gig and he's got plenty of money if he wants to fly back and forth. But again, 72 years old. He's probably more fit than, I am at this point in his life, but that's just because, he's with football every day. So yes, these guys are fit. These guys are ready to go, especially Pete Carroll. That guy is athletic at this point in his life. I mean, to be 72 years old and to be on the football field the way he is, oh my goodness. That's I aspire to be that. I'm going to dedicate time to become that at some point in life because man, you want to be running around when you're 72. I mean, that would just be awesome. You don't want to be standing, you don't want to be sitting around all day. You want to be moving. And Pete's moving. So we'll see how he reacts in life to moving around a little bit less. But I think he'll be just fine. He runs all the time. He'll be good. Bill Belichick, yes, he's 72, but he still looks good. So yes, these guys can still head coach, but is he better than a 39-year-old? Is he better than some of these other coaches? I mean, Is he better than a Kalen DeBoer who's 49 years old? Right? That we're going to talk about when it comes to Alabama. People were talking about Alabama. Oh, Bill Belichick, head coach of Alabama. Pete Carroll, head coach of Alabama. No, you want to go younger. You really want to go younger. And we'll talk about that in just a second.